ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Reid Revolution.
It's Friday morning. Very glad you're with us for the Reid Revolution. I'm John Reid, and lots to talk about. I'm glad I'm not in the Middle East anymore. Yesterday, I drove down to Norfolk so that I could talk to the Hampton Roads collection of young conservatives who were gathering for the second meeting of this organization that they put together. And that was a great trip. Lots of great people, lots of young business people who I think realize the Democrats are going to tax the hell out of them, and they don't like that. And so they're being driven towards the Republican Party. I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's awful that the Democrats are trying to raise taxes, but people who are on the bubble, maybe not the big companies, but people who are on the bubble realize that when you mandate a higher minimum wage, which most of them don't pay, but once the minimum wage goes up, guess what? Everybody else wants more money too. Not just the one employee you've got who's on minimum wage, but everybody else wants additional money. And when you mandate paid family leave, of course, I mean, it sounds great, paid family leave, months and months and months of paid family leave for whatever reason. Your mom is sick, your dad is sick, your kid is sick, you're sick. Okay, I understand, but there's a real consequence to that. And if you're not a major company with a lot of bank, it's hard to make that work. And people who were, up and coming, trying to make it work in Virginia, I mean, I'm sure there's an appreciation for the emotional concern, but you can't run a company that way. And so they're coming to the Republican Party. That's the only thing about this Democrat takeover, is that they never have any sort of self-discipline. And a lot of people who are Democrats don't have self-discipline. That's why they're snorting coke and smoking doobies all day, and it's pushing the gambling. I mean, because they're undisciplined people, and they're social justice warrior people. So I think this is right, therefore we must do it, and they don't think about the consequences that cause 1,000 other problems that they didn't bother to anticipate. So anyway, go down to Norfolk last night and talked about the gerrymandering, which we will discuss. The voting starts today for this illegal gerrymandering scheme that the Democrats lied about and are now pushing through. The common theme is lying to you. Yeah, I mean, does that bother you? I mean, I got beaten up on for telling everybody the truth. I would rather that. I have to tell you, I would rather have everybody despise me because I tell you the truth that you don't want to hear than have everybody love me because I lied to you, and then you wind up disappointing people. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good political strategy. I'm not sure. Maybe lying. Maybe the Democrats are showing us that lying is the only way you can get elected in modern America, but I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. But I go to Norfolk last night, and I look at my phone, and there's an update that the Iranians have struck one of the hotels that I stayed in when I was in Manama in Bahrain, and the Crown Plaza Hotel. I think they rebuilt it. They've got this little complex of really high-end hotels. But this is who we're up against. Bahrain is a Muslim country. Bahrain is ruled by a royal family that is committed to Islam, and they're killing people in Bahrain. And I was in Bahrain because there was an insurgency, a radical Islamic insurgency that was trying to murder everybody who was a part of the royal family and decapitate that government and take it over and make it a mini Iran. And of course, America has a lot of military assets, including the Fifth Fleet in Manama. So, it was also an attack on the United States. This is the stuff that nobody pays attention to. When I was there, I kept thinking, oh my God, no one knows what's happening here except for Doctors Without Borders. They had been hijacked to believe that the the royal family was the source of all evil. So they were, beating up on everybody. I was like, wow, if you only knew how evil the radical Islamists are, they'll kill anybody. They don't care who you are, they'll kill anybody. Um, and I lived in constant anxiety. I mean, I still functioned and everything. It wasn't like I hit the eject button because I couldn't handle it. But, you live with constant anxiety that you're going to catch a cab somewhere, or you're going to be walking around the corner to go to your rental car, and you're going to be kidnapped by somebody who's getting paid off by the Iranians, who wants either an American to hold hostage and try to get money, or, manipulate the government, or they just want to kill an American. They want another scalp. This is the life that has been going on in other parts of the world for almost 5 decades. And it's still jarring when I'm in Norfolk about to speak to a group of young business owners, and I look down and people I know and places that I have been are being bombed by Iranians. I mean, they say death to the West, death to America. They'll kill their own people, because that's how serious they are. And we need to take it seriously too. And one of the things that's been becoming very frustrating to me, and I hope it illuminates what we're up against with the modern Democrat Party. We should all be united in the effort to crush the Iranian government. The Iranian government has been the source of so much slaughter and so much consternation for so many years, decades, almost 5 solid decades. And modern Democrats cannot bring themselves to support the president in his effort to vanquish them. Now, what does that tell you? I don't think that that means that they're the Democrats are peace-loving people. Look at Obama. Obama wasn't peace-loving. He just picked and chose where he wanted to make statements militarily. And Republicans largely supported Obama. I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong. I don't remember Republicans condemning Barack Obama for going after terrorists and for bombing groups of terrorists and killing them. Am I remembering that correctly? Republicans were supportive of that, even if they didn't like Barack Obama, even if they didn't agree with his domestic policies, and if they didn't agree with, the palette of millions of dollars to the Iranians. When the president of another party took action to go after terrorists, I think if I remember correctly, Republicans were on board with that. Why can't Democrats do that with Donald Trump? Because they hate him so much, and they really don't care what the end result is, because the new leadership of the Democrat Party is all about power. That has nothing to do with making life more affordable for you. God, I'm so sorry if you were fooled by that. It has nothing to do with making life safer for you, domestically or internationally. It's about winning power. So if they have to criticize Donald Trump in the middle of a terrible and important war, they will do that in order to gain power. And to hell with all the Americans overseas, and to hell with our economic viability overseas and our safety domestically. This is a political play. You don't want people like that in office. You just can't put people like that in office. And I'm going to say it. That's Tim Kaine, and that's Mark Warner, our U.S. senators. I mean, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine ultimately broke on shutting down the government, but they shut down the government for political reasons. So, in one breath, remember this, they were complaining about how the government shutdown was just really hurting Virginia's economy. True. I mean, we've got enough people who are a part of the government infrastructure that they count on those checks. And so even if the checks come in late, it does have a negative impact on Virginia's economy. Yeah, they're still going to get paid likely. I mean, some of the contractors didn't, but you got to keep the pipeline going. They were complaining about that and then walking across the street and voting to keep the government closed. That's not statesmanship. That is political gamesmanship designed to help them. Remember it. Remember who will sell you out for political reasons. And then you cannot support those people. I mean, there needs to be a sea change in the leadership of the Democrat Party. Some patriots need to come back. I'm sure there are things that we disagree on that are around the edges here, where a good opposition party would help, the White House team make better decisions. But that's not what you're seeing right now. You're seeing really crass behavior. That translates to Virginia, where Abigail Spanberger, who, God, she promised she wasn't going to do this redistricting. She said over and over again, gerrymandering is bad. She supported the commission, the constitutional amendment, not a law, a constitutional amendment. We're going to take this away from the politicians. We're going to try to make this as fair as possible. There's her tweet. This is good news for Virginia and the country. Gerrymandering is detrimental to our democracy. It weakens the individual voices that form our electorates. Opposing gerrymandering should be a bipartisan priority. This was the Congresswoman saying that she supported the effort to take this away from the politicians so that when there were ugly moments, like what we're seeing now, the politicians don't get to manipulate the maps. She runs for governor. She tells everybody she has no intention of participating in the redistricting of Virginia. That was what she said. I'll give the press credit. They actually asked her a tough question. Wow, I thought the only person you could ask tough questions to was me. But all right, fine. You asked her that question and she gave you an answer. And here we are a couple of months later. She hadn't even been governor for 2 solid months yet. And she's changed her mind. And against the actual law, which apparently nobody cares about. The Supreme Court of Virginia doesn't care about what the law says and about the calendar. I mean, it's like the most basic thing. Show me on the calendar 90 days, and that's when you can, at the end of 90 days, that's when you can introduce the vote. That's when you can start the vote. Who cares about what the law says, apparently, according to the Supreme Court of Virginia? We're just going to, who's really paying attention to the details? I'm shocked by that. I shouldn't be. Because there have been several decisions in the last couple of years with the Virginia Supreme Court, including, the Lee statue in Virginia. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that. That's Civil War. Let's not talk about it. But it's bigger than just the Civil War, if you can believe that. When someone cuts a deal, signs a contract, makes an arrangement with the government, let's say you give something of value to a museum, or you make an arrangement about an easement, and the government agrees, you agree, there is an agreement. The Supreme Court has now said those agreements don't count. They really don't matter. And you're seeing this all over the country now. There is a new mindset that these agreements are temporary. So I'll be damned if I would get into a deal with the state government, because they're not going to honor it. As soon as you see a political change, apparently the deal doesn't count anymore. Okay. Noted. I just needed to know that because I actually take people at their word, and honor and obligation still means something to me. But, if it doesn't to you, let's just be clear what's happening. So the Supreme Court isn't going to make anybody in the state of Virginia actually obey the law. Now we're going to have this illegal vote, which does start today. I don't think anything is going to derail that. I don't think. And the lawyers I've been talking to have told me, no, if the voting starts today, and it has, it's now 10 o'clock in the morning if you're watching this live, the voting has started, we're having this illegal referendum. It's illegal, but we're still doing it. Okay. I don't know what, if the umpires won't participate in the game, then I don't know what you do. We're not in charge. The Democrats are in charge. They get to jam this stuff through. So here we are. Today, people are voting on the illegal gerrymandering scheme that tears out of the Constitution the desire to make redistricting nonpartisan. I mean, Abigail lied. The Democrats lied, who said that they weren't going to participate. Now they're going to do this. And the only way to stop it at this point, and it's a David and Goliath type situation, because the Democrats are getting millions of dollars from their friends nationally. Hakeem Jeffries in the House of Representatives, I mean, he wants to be speaker so bad. And, I mean, let's be honest. Can we be honest with each other? I'm not allowed to do that. It's my show. I'll be honest with you. He's likely to be the speaker, which is stunning to me. He's such an idiot. I mean, God, just listening to him talk, it's embarrassing that he's the leader of the Democrats. But I mean, we've got a drug dealer as the leader of the Democrats here in the House of Delegates. So, I mean, maybe I should just lower my standards all around. But anyway, this guy's likely to be the speaker anyway. Just traditionally in the midterms, the party that's in power in the White House generally loses seats. So they're going for broke to take the 6 Democrats and the 5 Republicans who are in the current seats in the House of Representatives and make it 10 Democrats, 1 Republican, likely. Jen Kiggans, maybe, if the stars align. She's a great congresswoman. I think she's very concerned about what's happening on the ground to everyone, not just, her little Republican group. Boy, the Democrats are really mean and nasty to her. God, I mean, it's just unbelievable how awful they are. Poor lady has to have armed security in her own hometown because these radical whack jobs down there are stalking her. I mean, I don't know why she wants to stay in the Congress. It's so horrible. But anyway, she actually is trying to care about everybody in her district. I think she does do a good job. She's not a radical in any way. She's ex-military. I mean, she's a great congresswoman for this district. She might be able to hold on. So maybe you wind up with 9-2. But it's likely, because we now have data that is so specific that they've drawn the lines, where it will be 10-1. 10 Democrats, 1 Republican, when consistently across the state, you have 40+%, maybe 45, occasionally a little bit more, solid Republican thinking in the state. Democrats don't give a damn about that. They're going to stomp on you every chance they get. So here's what I got to say to you. If you were one of the people last year who didn't vote, or you were mad, maybe you were mad at me for some reason, you don't like my lifestyle, for God's sake, please. I mean, it's just the whole state's going down the toilet, and you're going to talk to me about this. Okay, your call. You've turned over leadership to the Democrats because you stayed home last year. Can't undo that. I can't fix that. I warned you, but I can't fix that. Maybe you didn't like Winsome, you didn't like Jason because of some gun rule. I don't know. Or you couldn't be bothered. 45 days, you were really busy for 45 days. Didn't have time to vote. Every dead Democrat had time to vote from the grave, but you didn't have time to vote in your very, very busy life. Whatever the reason was you didn't vote last year, you got to vote starting today through April 21st. You got another 45 days to cast your vote and make it clear that you're not going to tolerate this. And we do have some Democrats who watch the show, and I'm appreciative of that. I'm sorry that I have to keep beating up on your party. Should do some work in there and kind of fix those guys. But if you're a Democrat, is this what you want? I know you want power. I understand that. But do you want to tear up the Constitution and allow this kind of power grab? Because it's coming back at you at some point. Don't think that this stuff happens in a vacuum. The Democrats are also lying when they say, oh, this is only through 2030. Come on. Do you know anybody who voluntarily gives up authority? We're gonna dump out all the Congress people now. Jen Kiggans, potentially Rob Whitman. I mean, my God, the guy's vice chair of armed services. He's protecting Virginia bases and posts and making sure the contracts come to Virginia legitimately, because we've got that infrastructure here. And you're going to get rid of him. So you don't have a John Warner as a senator anymore, who used to really look out for Virginia from a military perspective, former Secretary of the Navy, almost a little too aligned with the Democrats for my taste. But you don't have a John Warner anymore. Who are you going to make sure that Virginia military men and women are taken care of, and that these facilities and these contracts stay in Virginia, don't go to Mississippi or Alabama or Rhode Island Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to talk to? You're not going to have anybody, and no one's going to give a damn. Even Democrats are not going to care who the congressperson is from Richmond or Petersburg or Virginia Beach. They're not going to care. They're going to take these contracts and give them to their friends in their home states. And Virginia is going to be the loser in that. No one seems to care because it's all about political power now, not about looking after Virginia. Don't get used that way. I can't control what happens in Texas. I can't control what happens in California, Rhode Island, Maryland, Massachusetts. This is about making sure that Virginia is in a safe place. You need elected officials who are looking out for this state. It's one reason why I know this benefits me. I do look at people who were born in Virginia, who have family in Virginia, who were established in Virginia for a long period of time, and I gave a lot of credence to those folks. Jay Jones being the exception, since apparently he wants to kill people who don't agree with him. That, to me, that's a little bit of a disqualifier. But, in the modern era, who's really keeping track of that, right? But I think you've got a lot of leaders now who have no connection to Virginia, other than they've been here and they made some money, and this was where they landed in order to try to run for office, and they've been successful. And the end result is, when push comes to shove, they're not really going to defend their home state because it's not their home state. In the end, it doesn't really matter to them. Go out and vote today and vote no. When you get the ballot in the mail that is full of lies, the ballot is going to say, oh, this is all about fairness, and don't you want this to be a fair situation, and then we're going to return to normal in 2030. This is really, you need to be aware, in 2030, we're going to return to normal. It's all lies. It's deliberately designed to deceive you. It is deceitful. This is not about fairness for the Democrats. This is about power for the Democrats. And I'm hoping that some responsible Democrats will say, this is not the way to go about this. It's not the way to go about it in Texas and other states, but I can't control them. I can control what happens here. We set the standard for the nation with a constitutional amendment banning this stuff, banning this kind of political manipulation. We should stick with our Constitution and point to everybody else around the country and say, this is the model that you should be using. And just be aware, if this thing passes and you lose all that seniority in the House, we're screwed. Democrats, again, they don't care about that. They just want power in the House of Representatives, and that's a big problem. And I don't think they think it's a slam dunk, though. Barack Obama came out yesterday, and I'm told Barack Obama's coming to Virginia to campaign for this. So what does that tell you? That tells you, boy, they are serious about winning. Not only have they sent millions and millions of dollars here, so they're putting their money where their mouth is, and Republicans have not been willing to do that. That's why I'm out every single day talking to people. I've learned the hard way, though, if you don't have a couple of $1,000,000, your opponent can smear you with their television ads, and there's no way you can talk to enough people to make up that. But I'm going to do my best to go around and talk to people, like being in Norfolk until 9:30 last night, and then coming home and getting a couple hours sleep, and then being back up this morning. I mean, it's all on the line here. When you get that ballot in the mail, don't wait. Fill it out. Personally, I would take it to the courthouse or wherever you can drop the ballot off, and I would personally put it in so that I know that it's in there. That's what I would do. But if you got kids and you're running around to soccer, and we got the Cub Scout Pinewood Derby for my nephew tomorrow. I mean, if you've got a busy life, just put it in the mail and then check to make sure that it actually was received. That's better than getting to April 21st, the last day, and not having voted, and then find out that the Democrats manipulated just enough people with that mail-in ballot where they wind up taking over the entire state, and you lose your voice in Congress. This is a very real possibility. and you got to figure out a way to stop it. And the most effective way is for you to vote, for you to get your husband, your wife, your kids who are away at school, if they're 18, if they're citizens, get them to vote and vote no. Vote no. Um, you know, don't be deceived by what the Democrats are saying. Vote no. There's only one issue on the ballot, so there shouldn't be any confusion. You're not going to be asked a whole bunch of other stuff. You're not going to be asked about different candidates. Vote no, starting today, all the way through April 21st. And I'm going to remind you about this. I'm going to go out and check the mailbox in a little bit here at my house and just see if my ballot arrives today. I don't think it will be here. I think it'll probably be next week. But then I'm going to update you on what I'm dealing with here in Henrico. But it's all on the line, and you should take it seriously. Let's not reward the bad guys. Let's not reward the cynical, deceitful politicians in our midst. Let's return to some semblance of honor and do this the right way. Let's see. Real quick, I want to show you, if you could do this, Producer Dan, I'd like to show you the slow-mo of the little Ayatollah, Ghazala Hashmi, our lieutenant governor, who, can't be bothered when a Virginia citizen is murdered by an illegal immigrant. She can't be bothered by a reporter asking a question about whether we should deport the illegal immigrant and cooperate with federal officials. Even when a 41-year-old mother of three is murdered, Ghazala Hashmi just can't. She can't be bothered by that. Well, Producer Dan, is that going to work or not work? Because if it's not, then we'll take a break and we'll come back and try to figure that out. You want to text me and let me know? And let's see here. Maybe you are texting me, and I just
hold on. Hold on.
Well, I tell you what. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. I'll share that with you. We've got Elizabeth Pipko, who was the spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. She joins us to talk about the situation with President Trump, with the Congress, and the mood of the country when we return on this Friday edition of the Reid Revolution. And we welcome you back to the Reid Revolution. I'm John Reid. During the campaign for president, we talked to Elizabeth Pipko a number of times. She was the spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. Now she can speak without anybody looking over her shoulder and tell us what she's really thinking. I suspect that she's feeling pretty good about the progress that the Trump administration is making at this point. Elizabeth Pipko joins us today, and I really appreciate you taking time to be with us, Elizabeth. What is your assessment 1 year on about what the Trump administration has been able to do, even with the open hostility of the left-wing Democrats in Congress?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those hostilities because I don't think it's just elected officials in Congress. I think his biggest actual challenge every single day for President Trump is the narrative that is built around him and every single thing that he does. So not only does he have to accomplish everything that he set out to do, not only does he have to deliver for the American people, but he has to work against the narrative that the media puts out every single day about everything that he does and make sure that he's explaining to people why things happened and actually getting a response out to the American public from him and from our White House instead of from those outlets that want to destroy his reputation and kind of make the American people feel like everything that's happening is going wrong. It's unfortunate, but that is his reality. He's certainly used to it. He certainly learned the hard way in his first term that that was going to happen. But for him, it's not just about the accomplishments. It's about making sure the American people hear about those accomplishments at the same time. So I think he's done an incredible job considering those challenges. I think when you talk about border crossings, when you talk about everything that's going on when it comes to our foreign policy, especially in comparison to what went on under Joe Biden, you talk about the economy. People love to talk about how things are not affordable right now. Things are statistically getting increasingly better, by the day compared to when Donald Trump first took office last year. We can only anticipate that'll continue to get better going on into our midterms this year. Things are much better than they were when Joe Biden was in office. Things are better than anyone could have expected when it comes to things that Donald Trump promised he would accomplish that no one believed were possible. And I think for him, he's pretty proud of where he is, but also very aware of the fact that he has 3 years left to, finish the job and do exactly what he promised the American people that he would get done on that campaign trail.
Yeah. When you were the spokesperson at the RNC, how did you navigate this type of open hostility from reporters who I think it's safe to say at this point had no intention of treating you fairly or treating the campaigns fairly? It was almost like they were paid operatives for the DNC working against you. How did you navigate that?
Well, look, I think it's about going in knowing that that's exactly what you're about to face. I wasn't the only one doing media, of course. So for us, it was about watching each other and seeing how everyone else was being treated. I watched Laura Trump. I watched Caroline Leavitt. I'm watching the president himself, of course. And I'm seeing these people that I care about and who I know very well being treated like awful individuals before they even get to open their mouth and answer a basic question, because they're going in as the face of something that these folks do not want to see in the White House, do not want to see victorious. And so they're not really in it for the same reason that someone else might be. You might get a journalist who wants to be fair and ask a genuine question, and then you get a journalist that wants to ask that question but make sure that they get to twist it into something negative, or that they edit your words after the fact, even worse, which has happened to me quite a bit. So I think it's really just about the fact that I saw it happen all around me. I was much more prepared to do the job now than I would have been, of course, 5 or 10 years ago. I started working for Donald Trump in 2016. At that point, I was incredibly naive, and I would not have believed any of the hostilities that I later faced. I would not have believed that that could be possible when I started, because I just believed so much in our country. And of course, I still do. But the evil that I've seen, the negativity I've seen, the amount of people I've seen who would put really their hatred for Donald Trump and Republicans above their love for the country or their interest in seeing America succeed really, really surprised me. But fortunately, I guess you get used to it very, very quickly. So I went in with the facts and knowing that I was going to face some really hostile people, and knowing that what I believed to be true was coming out of my mouth. And that's really all that I could really deliver and do at that point.
Yeah, you got to be nimble. I have to tell you, at the beginning, I knew that the ICE raids and the deportations would generate ugly stories. It's not a nice thing to see people, have to leave a country even if they're not here illegally. They're not here illegally. I was surprised, though, that at the beginning, at least, both the media and the Democrats focused on the most unsympathetic characters that were out there, people who were associated with foreign gangs and had been convicted of crimes, and they acted like they were defending them. Now they've recalibrated to show a little 5-year-old boy, and I don't think they're telling us the truth about what happened with that child, but at least you can look at a 5-year-old boy and everybody would have some sympathy. Did you encounter a lot of that type of deception when you were in your role?
Certainly, I think for me, it's about realizing the Democrats, really anyone who opposes Donald Trump, it's not just Democrats at this point, but that these individuals want to take an issue with anything that he does and says, even if it doesn't seem like it makes sense in the moment. That's what they're going to do. We like to joke that Democrats very often take the losing side of majority of these 80-20 issues, whether it's about voter ID laws, which they don't want, despite majority of Americans wanting them, whether it's about allowing boys into girls' sports, despite the fact that majority of Americans stand against it, whether it's about these strikes in Iran that just happened. When you know that the majority of Americans understand that Iran is our enemy, they want to take that losing side because they have to oppose anything Donald Trump says and does. So I think for me on the campaign trail, that's what I was aware of. I knew that everything Donald Trump was advocating for, the majority of our country wanted. I've always said it. He has said it from day one. It's not conservative. It's just common sense. And to me, I wasn't really representing Donald Trump in that time, although I was, and that meant a lot to me. But I was also representing the millions of Americans who wanted to vote for the GOP in that race, had voted for the GOP over the years, and were crucified for it by their neighbors and their bosses and their friends and by the media. And so for me, I just wanted to make their voices heard and let people understand that we're not the bad guy that they want us to seem like we are. We're just Americans who see things a little bit differently. And if you look at the numbers, the majority of people tend to agree. And it's just really sad. Things have been framed very, very differently. But I think anyone that follows politics at this point is incredibly used to it.
Yeah. Well, you bring up Operation Epic Fury, and it is interesting. A few years ago, I think most people would have agreed you can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and that seems to have been wiped off the table with the narrative that Donald Trump is seeking another war and that he has no plan to get out of this. What's your assessment, having been through this rigmarole in the past? How do you navigate this situation right in front of us?
Well, I've heard people make that case, right? Like you just mentioned, that this is a new war. And the problem is that's where the lies begin, because it's not a new war. We can certainly debate how this should have been done, what he could have done differently. I mean, anyone that respects the United States of America and our military, I get it. We are owed that conversation. We should always have that conversation. But this is a conflict that's been going on for decades, right? Iran has posed a threat to the United States of America and others, obviously, including our allies around the world, for many, many years. And they've tortured and they've kidnapped and they've murdered hundreds of Americans, if not thousands. They're responsible for some of the most horrific images I ever saw growing up when I was learning our own country's history. And I think for Donald Trump, this is the opposite of starting a new war. It's putting an end to a decade-long war and conflict and avenging the lives of those Americans who were taken from us too soon by this regime. Obviously, also supporting those in Iran. We know tens of thousands of those protesters were killed by the regime in recent weeks. Donald Trump does not stand for that. So I know it means a lot to him to free these individuals. And I think most importantly, it's about future generations in America, our future children and grandchildren not having to face the threat of a nuclear Iran. So it's the opposite of a new war. Ukraine was a new war. What happened in the Middle East, in Gaza, that was a new war. Those were started on Joe Biden's watch. I believe that never would have happened, either one of them, if Donald Trump was in the Oval Office at that time. He's put in every effort possible to end those wars and others. And now he's doing the same thing here. It is not a new war. It's the ending of a decades-long war, threat, and conflict. And it's making sure that our future American children will be safe and never have to deal with this threat again.
What do you say to women? It's surprising to me, the women who have just reflexively gone against the Republican Party and against Donald Trump for whatever reason, who seem to be siding with the mullahs here and the Ayatollah and the oppressive regime that treated women like dirt overseas. And yet there doesn't seem to be at least an acknowledgement that that's not something that feminists and Western women would ever applaud. And they seem to be on the wrong side of this issue, in my opinion.
Well, look, I've debated our own policies here in America with so-called feminists for years, and I have every interest in the world in doing that because I love my country so much, and I hate to see the deep disagreements that we have. I don't really have as much patience with feminists when we're debating if the Iranian regime was good or bad, right? When I see women that tell me they'd rather live in Iran than here in America, or that women are treated better in Iran, I mean, it really just means that you're either blissfully ignorant or you're purposely lying to me and to yourself. I mean, this is basic common sense, basic common knowledge. You have to really, really know absolutely nothing and really despise your country here at home to be able to utter those words. I think it's disgusting. And I just think people should open their eyes and realize that the same folks that they're very often debating domestic policy with are the same ones that are very happy to burn an American flag and march with the flag of the Iranian regime, march with the flag of ISIS, those Hamas flags we've seen on protests for the last 2 years. These are people that are not worth engaging with. They are blissfully ignorant or evil. And when you hate America that much, I don't really think that we could ever come to any kind of, let's say, solution in a conversation.
Yeah. And I know you got to go in a second, but let me ask you what you're thinking in advance of the midterms this year. We're looking at the gerrymandering proposal in Virginia that could change the numbers for Democrats and Republicans in this Commonwealth. But take that out of the mix. How do you think Republicans do this fall? Snapshot right now. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm a little surprised by how many people are feeling negative about the midterms when we're 9 months out. As someone who's been in, the Donald Trump orbit for 10 years, I could tell everyone, I have learned the hard way sometimes, that you can never predict the future in American politics. And certainly when Donald Trump is at the helm. I have no idea what's going to happen over the next 9 months, but I do genuinely, very confidently believe Donald Trump will continue to succeed and Democrats will continue to embarrass themselves. People very often like to show me Donald Trump's approval ratings, but they are, limits above, obviously, those Democrats, right? I've never seen an approval rating for a party be so low. I've never seen an entire party really have absolutely zero to offer the American public and to continue to run on the fact that Donald Trump is bad and they are good. I have all the faith in the world in the people of our country who I know want to vote really with their best interest at heart, with the best interest of America at heart. I do not believe that things are as doom and gloom as they expect. I understand, statistically speaking, very often the party that's not in power tends to do better in those midterms. But Donald Trump is the president after the entire world went after him and he was shot in the head. So we have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm feeling very, very confident in Donald Trump's successes right now and how many more he can add to that list over the course of the next year.
Yeah. Well, you've seen it up close, and it does seem like when he decides he wants to go after something, he's not passive. He's going to be super aggressive over the next several months. And, maybe the successes, once he gets to articulate those, it'll move some of those numbers. And I hope he'll bring you on board, because I watched you from a distance 2 years ago, and you really knocked it out of the park time and time again. Elizabeth Pipko, the former spokesperson for the RNC, the Republican National Committee, I appreciate the chance to talk to you. Thank you.
Me too. Thanks so much.
Okay. We're back with more on the Reid Revolution in just a moment.
We are back on this Friday and appreciate you sticking around with us. I think it's very interesting to hear from Elizabeth Pipko and, her perception of things. I mean, you heard her say at the beginning of her career that she was naive or, not prepared to deal with a group of people that you would expect to be kind of upfront. It doesn't mean they have to agree with you. And, you're going to get tough questions. You're going to get people who are going to ask you questions that will challenge your beliefs. You need to have thought through it enough. If you're going to be a spokesperson or an elected official, you need to have spent some time thinking about these issues so you can actually respond to people who are going to challenge you on them. And I find that a lot of people haven't done that. They're in an echo chamber. Everybody just nods their head and says, yes, 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 I agree with you. I agree with you. Of course, that's the way it should be. And you never have to actually defend your beliefs. That you're not ready to be in public life if you can't defend what you're saying. And a lot of the folks who are doing communications, that's just not what they're dealing with. So let's, Dan, I still do not see the elements that you're showing. So I think it's probably best for us just to go to our next guest, the former ambassador and former governor of Virginia, Jim Gilmore, who is very, very, I'm so excited to have you on today because, my God, things have really changed since the last time you and I talked. Good morning to you. How you feeling?
Good morning, John. I'm glad to have a chance to talk to your viewers.
Thank you. All right, so let's dive right into the situation with Iran. I don't know how you perceive this. You were in Vienna dealing with European powers who most certainly had concerns about Iran. What do you think is going on right now? I assume you support the president in this action. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, perhaps let's wait and see how this hand plays out in Iran and have a clear definition of what our goals are. So let's talk about that for just a minute. There's no doubt that the destruction of Iran's military capability, rockets, even their nuclear capability, if they can get to that, their armed militia, the destruction of those things is a good thing, because that's what has been empowering Iran to extend themselves out now across the Middle East and beyond. And let's be very clear that the primary beneficiary of that approach is Israel. They're the ones right now who are under the direct threat, not so much the United States. Israel is, but the United States has a long-term interest in this. We have four countries on the world stage that are anti-American: Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. If ultimately you can take Iran off the board and put a different regime in and make them a more normal country that's more concerned about building up their country rather than exporting revolution kind of attitude, that would be a good thing for the United States of America, not to mention for Israel. But I think that the war still has to play out, John. I don't think that we have a clear idea of what victory is or what is achievable, and we have to find out how it's going to be executed in the days ahead. I know what they're doing, by the way. Their goal is systematically, week by week, to eliminate certain aspects of Iran's power, and they are doing that. That doesn't necessarily result in regime change.
Yeah. Uh, they've slaughtered the first and I guess second tier of people who might step in and navigate and manage the existing political infrastructure. For 2 months, it seems like that political infrastructure was slaughtering the people who might be on the ground and capable of leading a resistance to the radical Islamists. How do you think that plays out? Is everybody with any kind of leadership instinct going to be wind up dead, and then it's I don't know, the meek shall inherit the earth. You get a bunch of kind of random people that we're not familiar with who take over, or the folks come in from Paris who've been exiled, or the United States who've been exiled.
Well, I think the meek shall inherit the earth is not successful policy. I don't think
Right.
that the people who are in Iran right now who have been doing the protests are in a position to take on the Revolutionary Guard. That's not going to happen. And I question whether or not you can make it happen without putting American soldiers into Iran, which I think we're not going to do. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
I would not suggest that we do at this point. So that leaves a question mark, and that is, can you just systematically keep destroying the current structure in Iran until there isn't anybody? I still don't think that makes the protesters the government. Can you parachute somebody in from either Paris or the United States to take over the country? Don't know whether that creates the legitimacy. You would, I suppose, put in an interim government, and a couple are starting to try to organize, and then try to have a fair and honest election. That would be, I would think, the approach, which has not been articulated by anybody but me, by the way. But I would think that would be the approach that you would try to take. Now I'm talking about taking over the government and building a different regime change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not clear that's the American goal. It looks like it is. But right now, the only thing we definitely see is the elimination of Iran's military capacity. That favors the United States in the long run. It favors Israel immediately.
When you were ambassador, and based on the briefings you got and your understanding of global affairs, do most Iranians resent and want to get rid of the radical Islamists who have been running their country for 47 years? Or are we, and this is just objective, are we seeing the protests and doing what so many people in the United States do when they see protests against Donald Trump? They presume that that's the way most Americans think, and we're missing that there was a reason that this regime took over, and there was a reason that this regime has stayed in power. It's not all just slaughtering the opposition. Is there widespread support for this radical Islamic movement, and maybe we have been confused about what's on the ground there? That's hard for
John,
me to accept, but
John, I think that's the legitimate question. And I think that we don't know really the answer to that. I think that will play out in the days and weeks ahead as to what the exact answer to that question is. Let's talk about it for just a minute. Tyranny is a terrible thing. Once you have control of a government, you have control of its police, you have control of secret police and regular police and its military, it's very hard for some internal movement that's more democratic to win. Unless they're organized and armed, which they are not in Iran. I see no evidence of that, other than the Kurds, and they may take over a portion of their area and create a Kurdistan, in which case they're going to have to deal with Turkey. But that's another story. The story right now is we don't really know whether or not regime change is possible in this environment or not. And I think that hand still has to play out, John. We just don't know. Look, we are Westerners would like to focus on the protesters, and I want to just say a word about that. The dissolution of the Soviet Union was largely caused by this kind of internal protest type of movements. Okay, it was. I saw it. We call it color revolutions. We saw it in Ukraine. We saw it in Georgia. We even saw an attempt at it in China at Tiananmen Square. We saw a successful work of it in Russia before Putin took over. So this can happen, but you have to have basically a breakdown completely of the government so that they can no longer exercise any control in that country. I guess that's what's underway right now by the American and Israeli strikes. I don't know whether you can do that or not, once again, without soldiers. I just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. How is this playing politically, you think, for President Trump?
Well, we don't know
Objectively.
yet. If
Yeah.
he's in a position to have a great triumph, perhaps that the public will support him. I mean, so far the polls are not favorable to President Trump on this incursion, but it's early days yet, and we have to wait and see once again whether it's successful.
Are you watching the military and thinking that they're executing in a different way than we have with other conflicts that we've engaged in? There wasn't a lot of build-up and explanation to the press and explanation to the people. I mean, I think we knew this was coming. He said, "I'm going to give you 8 to 14 days to negotiate, and then I'm going to annihilate you." But it does seem to be a different mindset than what we saw under, say, George W. Bush when he was engaged in these types of actions.
Well, it is different. Let's talk about the differences very quickly. I had just been national chairman of the party and was very engaged in national policy at the time of the Iraq incursion. I didn't have any voice to say what I thought, but I thought that the Iraq incursion was a bad idea.
Mm.
But George W. Bush led up to it with a lot of discussion, a lot of preparation, a lot of marshaling of forces. You saw it coming, and of course, and it was not successful. Yeah, sure, they toppled the government, but then they tried to take over the government, new regime change, and that did not succeed. Let's look at where we are today. We actually have less going on. We didn't do a real military buildup that was visible to the American people. We haven't offered a real plan of action that we're trying to execute to the American people. And I think the American people at this point are puzzled, as I am, as to exactly where this thing comes out. It's almost like you now reveal that the cake is in the oven, but you don't know what it's going to look like when it comes out. And I think that's one of the reasons why the American people are a little puzzled by this whole thing. So let's see how it plays out, John.
Yeah. I've got to ask you about Ukraine, Russia, which has slid to a back burner status, at least in the national news of late. What has been happening, and where are you on that conflict? And do we see a resolution of that anytime soon?
Well, let's talk about the linkage between the European Ukraine war in Russia and the fight that's going on in Iran. Right now, the fight in Iran has done several things. First of all, it's bad for Russia because they look silly, because they can't come to the aid of their so-called ally. And I would point out that last year that Iran and Russia actually entered into a military and economic agreement of alliance, and now that's not happening. On the other hand, this is not a bad deal for Putin. This Iran war is actually a pretty good deal for Putin for two reasons at least. One, it's going to increase the price of oil worldwide. We have been dramatically trying to reduce Putin's ability to use his oil economy to fund his war machine. And as a result of that, he's suffering. I think Putin is losing the war and is going to lose that war if we stay the course. If Zelensky and the Ukrainian people can stay the course, Putin is going to lose that war. On the other hand, this war in Iran will boost the price of oil, which will give more money to Putin, which will save him. There's that potential
Yeah.
that's there, uh, and um, and furthermore, to your point, to come back to this war in Iran does what I really fear. I've made it clear to everybody for months and even years that I think the European war is the pivot of the future. That's where the real battle for the future rests. Whether Europe is going to be compromised, intimidated, and neutralized, which I believe is a threat to the existence of the United States. Ukraine is the key. The Iran war diverts attention and resources away from the European war into the Middle East. That's great for Putin. We can't send any materials. We can't even sell materials where our attention is completely diverted. You make the point correctly that there's no discussion now of the Ukraine war. This is all dramatically to Putin's benefit. If I were Vladimir Putin, I'd want this war that the United States is involved in. If I were Israel, I would very much want this war, and they are executing this war to their benefit. So there's a lot to still learn here as to how it's going to impact things. Furthermore, China at this point doesn't look particularly active either. But on the other hand, I've always made the point that I think the Chinese are some of the smartest people geopolitically in this discussion. Right now, they can bide their time and wait and see how this comes out. If this turns out to be not a good thing, the Iran war, then that proves out a Chinese position, which is don't interrupt your enemy when they're screwing themselves, okay?
Yeah.
When they're hurting themselves. So we don't know whether the United States is hurting themselves in this war yet or not.
So sometimes geostrategically, you get something like this that's a big distraction, and one of the protagonists in the other conflict uses the distraction as the moment that they go full throttle to try to vanquish their enemy. Is there a way for either Russia or Ukraine to use that distraction to win and put that to bed? Or are we still in the midst of negotiating this thing? Somebody.
My opinion is the negotiations help Putin. And that I think that it's been continuously an effort to really help Putin. We need to be full throated behind Ukraine, in my opinion. And it's not just being for Ukraine. It's the international system. The question is, are you going to allow Russia to come in and conquer another independent country and prove to the rest of Europe that he can do it? Are you going to enable him to go into the Baltic states and even to the Scandinavian states? Are you going to enable him to do those things? I think that is a direct threat to the existence of the United States. I've made that clear. What's the answer? I think the Russians are not able at this point to conquer Ukraine. They've proven it. It's been 4 years. They haven't got anything really. They've got ill-gotten gains, and they're doing terrible things in those ill-gotten areas, by the way, terrible things. They're committing war crimes all over the place there. And it's a terrible thing, but they're not going to be able to conquer the rest of Ukraine. Even the Europeans at this point have stepped up, and that's under the president's leadership. They have stepped up their own capacity, and they're helping Ukraine at this point in a way that America no longer is.
Yeah. I don't want to run out of time without bringing you back to Virginia politics. And, today is the day that early voting starts for this gerrymandering scheme that the Democrats are jamming through here in Virginia. Even though they said they weren't going to do it, and Abigail Spanberger, the new governor, said she wasn't going to do it. Now she's going to do it. What do you make of this?
It's one of the greatest and historic wrongdoings that we've seen in Virginia, maybe in generations. This is an effort to disenfranchise the people of Virginia and to manipulate the election to make it a 10-1 Democratic result. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. I hope every single person watching your podcast will get themselves out to the early voting polls and vote no for this. It must be defeated. If it's successful, I believe it changes Virginia politics for a generation. Now, a couple of things here. If you really look at this, once they do this wrongdoing thing and they manipulate the elections, they undermine people's confidence in democracy in Virginia all the way to begin with. They do that. Second of all, once these Democrats are in office, do you really think they're going to go back to some other kind of more fair redistricting over again? And if you believe that, I got a bridge to say in Brooklyn, that's not going to happen. Furthermore, Governor Spanberger, who of course violated her own principles and all other principles of democracy by supporting this redistricting, She says, "Don't you worry. I tell you now, as governor of Virginia, it will go back to the right thing again." I remind your viewers and everybody else of the one-term governorship. When
Yeah.
this comes to back up on the issue again in the census of 2030, she will be long gone. She will not be governor and will have nothing to say about this. Who knows what that next governor will do? It may be an even more radical governor out of the Democratic House of Delegates that becomes governor of Virginia, for example, or Lieutenant Governor Hashemi or somebody like that, who's
Hmm.
even more radical. So who knows what's going to happen then? But these reassurances to the people of Virginia is baloney. This
Yeah.
is wrongdoing. It's corrupt. It's filthy politics. The people of Virginia have an opportunity now to vote it down. But that rests with the people of Virginia. If they vote yes on this thing, they are basically surrendering their own democracy in Virginia, in my view.
Or if they stay home. I mean, you think Republicans are motivated? Are they paying attention? And clearly, last year, a lot of Trump voters, I mean, you could list 5 or 6 reasons why maybe they stayed home. I don't think anybody's determined exactly what happened, but they didn't turn out. So do you think that this animates them? Are they aware of it? What's your sense?
I think Winsome Sears is entitled to a lot of credit for running. She ran very vigorously, but I think that most of us would agree that she never really settled on a theme that of election that would persuade the people of Virginia to vote for her. Now, Spanberger was selling snake oil, okay, but she at least was trying to do that. She was doing that. This is my way of saying this redistricting thing is a clear message of the Republican Party and, frankly, of the independents of Virginia and everybody in Virginia that believes in democracy. This is a mission that we have right now. Unfortunately, it's all of a sudden upon us with this crazy early voting thing. We no longer have election day. We have election month. We have election month and a half. So people may go to the polls today and vote yes for this based upon the misleading information on the ballot from the governor, from the special television ads that are on right now. And then as it begins to sink in 30 days from now that this is undemocratic, it'll be too late. People have already
Too
voted.
late.
That's kind of a problem. So anyway, to your point, this is the time to motivate every Virginian and especially Republicans to get up out of their chairs and go vote no.
No. You mentioned the wording on the referendum, which is clearly one-sided and says it talks all about fairness when I don't see how you can make the case for fairness. Is it illegal for the government to present wording that is that one-sided? I mean, it doesn't appear to be any objective attempt at neutrality here, and I have a hard time believing that that is kosher with the law. Or am I missing something?
Oh, I think you would have to have a court rule on something like that. And
Mhm.
the courts have made it very clear that they don't want to intervene into the politics.
Why?
Well,
Why do you think that is?
it's a long-standing legal principle that the courts try to avoid getting into the politics of partisan politics of any state. That's true at the federal level and also true at the state level. But the point is not so much that they've done that now. They've basically said, look, you can go forward with the referendum.
Mhm.
And so there you are. So the burden is no longer on the courts to try to fix this. The burden is on the people of Virginia to say,
To
I'm
respond.
being cheated here by this language. How dare they put this kind of language up and mislead me? How
Mhm.
dare they put on these fake ads and try to mislead me? How dare Governor Spanberger do a backflip and do this endorsement of this? Fine. The courts are basically saying, hey, look, it's up to the people of Virginia to do their duty. And that's what I'm saying right now.
Yeah. Well, now you were attorney general, you were Commonwealth's attorney and a practicing lawyer. So drill in with on this for just a second with me. I would have thought that the rules and the law mandating certain dates before this could be presented to the public would be clear, and that the courts would say, "Hey, we're not taking an opinion. We're not issuing an opinion on whether this is good or bad or any of that." But you would at least have to look at the calendar and follow the dates that you agreed to when you created this law, and you haven't done that. So, you know what? You can still repeal the constitutional amendment. You can do whatever you want, but you've got to obey the basic structure that's been put in place, and they wouldn't even get involved in that. Am I wrong to be really disturbed by that? As a
I,
as a former attorney general, does that seem normal to you, or because I'm mad about it, but maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know.
I think it's all still pending. Now, I haven't studied the law case because I'm not practicing the case, but
Hmm.
it's my understanding that the courts have basically said we're not going to issue an injunction against the referendum.
Right.
The legislature's ruled, the governor signed it. We're not going to overturn that, but we're still going to have briefing and we're still going to have argument and we still reserve the right to rule at a later time. I
Hmm.
think that is actually the status of these cases right now.
I think that's right. But then
Well,
once it's done, it's done.
not necessarily. Not necessarily. What I think the courts are praying is that the public will rise up and vote no. And
Hmm.
if they vote no and defeat it in the referendum, then the cases are moot and the
Hmm.
courts can wash their hands of it. But
What
if
a
it,
punt on their part, though.
very much so, but if on the other hand it passes,
Yeah.
I still think the volleyball is still up in the air on this.
But then we're running up against the clock again. The calendar matters. We're running up against the clock for the midterms, and does Rob Whitman run again? Is he running in this district that he's currently in, or running in some bastardized district? Jen King, all of these people. I think the court's inaction here to just enforce these basic calendar rules is creating chaos that I would have expected um, legal minds to abhor and say, it's up for us. Our responsibility is to keep the structure of law intact, even if we don't like the end result of what the people choose.
Well,
It's
it
just
is what it
puzzling to
is.
me.
It is what it is,
Yeah,
John. The courts haven't created this. The
right.
courts
That's true.
react the best of the way they can, but it's been created by the left wingers in the House of Delegates and the Virginia State Senate, and then the going along to get along with Governor Spanberger on this. This would have been a
Hmm.
place where the governor could have stepped in and said, "Look, I'm going to try to bring some order into this, and I'll do the amendments that are proper." But she's going along with this because that's been created long before she got there. And now, of course, it's a heavily empowered Democratic legislature. So anyway, that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
That's what's created the chaos. And let me also say, by the way, that the main point we need to make on this redistricting is this. This is wrong. This is an effort to disempower the voters of Virginia. This is improper. It's wrong. I think it's unconstitutional, and and it's really unnecessary. If you really begin to count up the votes of the various states around the country that are looking at this, the Democrats have an edge, really, with or without the Virginia votes.
Right. That's
But,
right. Yeah.
but the duty here, in my view, as the former governor, the duty is to the people of Virginia. It's not appropriate here to put together a system with this referendum or otherwise this new system that ruins the congressional seats in Virginia.
Yeah.
That's the wrongdoing in the state of Virginia to the people of Virginia. Our first duty is to the people of Virginia. Now, you can argue about what's going on nationally, and Spanberger's playing the national game. The Democrats in the legislature are playing a national game unnecessarily, in my view.
Hmm.
But that's not their primary duty. Primary duty is to the people of Virginia that they were elected to represent.
Yeah. There's a twisted, sick irony about the people who constantly lecture us about protecting democracy, stomping all over half the voters of the state. I just hope people are on both sides of the political spectrum don't appreciate that. And to your point, once this Pandora's box is open, the payback is going to be hell in the future, I'm afraid. That's not good for any of us.
That's right. But look, this your podcast ought to be along with everything else that we're doing and everybody else is doing across the state on the Republican side and frankly, in neutral side. This should be a call to action. Your
Hmm.
podcast today should be a call to action. People need to not only go vote no, but they need to get their wives and husbands to vote no, and their grown children to vote no, and their friends at their offices to vote no, because there's a mission here. And the mission here is to not allow the democracy of Virginia to be impugned. That's the mission. And I'm shocked that we have to be talking like this, but we do. But it's a call to mission right now for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I'll be voting soon and voting no, and I know you will too. Former Virginia governor and former ambassador to Europe, Jim Gilmore. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, producer Dan rejoins us, and we'll talk about the best and worst of the internet as we wrap up this week on the Reid Revolution.
All right.
Hello there.
So still flying blind a little bit.
I am totally flying blind. This is great. I appreciated Governor Gilmore coming on. He's always
great.
Really clear with things. And this guy, remember, he ran for the House of Delegates. He was Commonwealth's attorney in Henrico, Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Chairman of the Republican National Committee. And ran for president of the United States. When we talk to Jim Gilmore, you're hearing decades and decades and decades of Virginia-based analysis of what has been going on and what's going on in the state. Went to the University of Virginia, so it's unlike so many other people who are now in power here. You're not talking about someone who just decided to plop in and 10 years later, they're arrogant enough to figure that they'll straighten all the dumb Southerners, in their opinion, out, right? I mean, I'm so kind of offended and fed up with this attitude of people who come to Virginia and take it upon themselves to fix this society that they're fortunate enough to live in. They want to live here, but then they want to take over. I'm a little miffed by that. But all right, so I don't know how we're going to do this, producer Dan, but maybe you can do like a voice of the blind for me, because what I hope, if you're watching at home, you're able to see the video clips, but for some reason in my house,
nothing is. You've sent me photos. You're like, hey, what's going on? I can't see any of the visual elements of the show. Like, well, they're going out, and I'm seeing them on the live stream. Nobody's complaining that they can't see them on their end,
and they would certainly be complaining.
I hate to say it, but the problem is I think it's a you problem.
It must be some sort of rendering issue or storage space issue on my computer or something. I don't know, but we had decided that we would show a couple of different clips here. One of them being Punch the Monkey. Now, I know, why are people making fun of me about being interested in Punch the Monkey? It's the biggest thing on the internet right now. Punch the Monkey in Japan, biggest thing on the internet. And so here's the date. I think we'll do this next week and just see this poor little monkey. I thought had found a friend, and maybe the other monkeys were accepting Punch the Monkey, but it doesn't seem that way now.
Yeah, so we have a new video out, and it's not as depressing as the previous ones, perhaps, but
where
Punch
they were beating
back,
him up and
Punch is back to existing in a state seemingly of semi isolation. So I'm playing the video now, John, just for folks who, for you who can't see, but Punch is down on another level of this rock-like terrace, and the other monkeys are all up top, and then he's sort of, I'm guessing, almost hiding from the rest of them, maybe so that he doesn't suffer the abuse that he previously did. But he's just sort of looking around and trying to stay quiet, it looks like.
I still don't get what is making them hate this monkey so much or turn on this monkey. What is it?
Maybe he's too cute for his own good. Maybe they think he's a hot monkey.
a Mean Girls
He's
situation.
hot. He's hot monkey. Yeah, Cary Grant once
Mean
said, the
Girls-
world hates beautiful people. Maybe
That's
the
right.
world hates beautiful monkeys.
It's a weird thing to see. It's a weird.
That's
thing
what
to
we'll
see. All
tell.
right, well,
That's what
anyway.
we'll say about ourselves. That's that. If we ever get to feel like we're unpopular, well, it's just because the world hates beautiful people. We'll just
Oh, I'd
tell
love to
ourselves
think
that to
that's
make
what
us
it
feel
was,
better.
but I'm pretty sure
It won't be.
that it's
It
more-
won't be true in my case, but I'll at least say that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm pretty sure it's the commies. It's as simple as that. The commie bastards who are out there who don't want anybody who's going to intellectually challenge them. Well, tough.
Oh, now
We're gonna
we
do
have
that.
a couple. We have a couple of viewers indicating that their screen is black too. So I don't know what's going on. It's
Well, doggone it, Dan.
Yeah,
What is the
it's-
deal with that?
I don't know what's happening all of a sudden with our
This has not been the best
Yeah.
week for us technically, has it?
Yeah,
What-
and to be transparent, because I'm sure people are wondering, well, where are all the clips from yesterday? Where are the interviews from yesterday? If we have a sort of a specific procedure that guests have to follow in the process of signing out once an interview is over. Riverside, our platform, which is state of the art. I think it's the most popular platform for these podcasts, but it's recording everything in process as we're going, and if a guest signs out inappropriately or I guess hastily, it basically paralyzes the whole show recording. And unless the guest is subsequently later in time able essentially to correct the improper sign out, we have nothing that we can edit or put together in post production at all, and we're just sort of left with the live unedited
So bizarre
version of the show.
I don't
so,
get it.
So if you're ever wondering what, Dan, stop slacking off. Get chop. What are you doing? I'm trying. I don't like to toot my own horn in this regard, but I promise I'm trying. But and now we have other people saying that the screen is working fine. So it's almost like this weird.
How bizarre.
So some
really
people can
bizarre.
see it, some people can't.
When
I'm
this
seeing
is
it
over,
on
I will
live feed.
shut down.
Yeah.
When this is over, I'll shut down the computer and reset it, and hopefully
this
we can
is
start.
this
But
is
let
totally
me-
bizarre.
Why don't we just do this? We'll wrap this Friday. Everybody wants
Friday,
to get going and do stuff. But I
It's
will
5
say
o'clock
this:
somewhere. Not here yet, but it's somewhere.
we want to show the video next week, and I'm going to continue to point this out to people because apparently no one else is going to do it. The little Ayatollah Ghazala, who, remember, she marched with Hamas, right? I mean, I had a couple of people who were critical of me yesterday saying, "Oh, John, what a sore loser you are. How awful it is that you keep bringing up the Islam thing." Sorry, I think that it's an important issue, and I can tell you if this was Pat Robertson, and Pat Robertson was refusing to offer, let's just take a similar circumstance. Let's say that a gay guy had been beaten to death in a parking lot, right? In a church, let's make it a church parking lot, just a hypothetical. Do you think if Pat Robertson, the former preacher who ran the 700 Club, if Pat Robertson was the lieutenant governor of Virginia and a gay man had been beaten to death in a parking lot, do you think someone might think, oh, let's go see how Pat Robertson is reacting to this? Is he going to say something really offensive and unempathetic and say, well, the gay guy got what he deserved? Is that what is he going to say? Or is he going to say, we're all a part of God's family and this is not right and we're a state of law and order and this is not correct? Which answer will he give us? Or will he roll his eyes and refuse to speak and walk by and then have a security guy push the reporter out of the way, which is what Ghazala Hashmi, the little Ayatollah, did? I don't know what Ghazala Hashmi's attitude is because no one ever bothered to ask her during the campaign. Stupid gay people went and supported her because she's a leftist, and there are a lot of gay people who they're more committed to the leftist movement than they are committed to their own survival in society. So that's how dumb a lot of these people are. Unfortunately, God, it's crazy. But you tell me, is it unfair for me as a commentator, whether I ran against this person or not, to say, and I think you should ask everybody who is a Muslim in the legislature, You don't have to be offensive about it. Asking the question cannot be what the offense is, because asking questions is fair. How do you analyze what President Trump is doing in Iran? Do you support President Trump? Do you not support President Trump? Are you upset that the Ayatollah is dead? Do you support the Islamic regime of Iran? I mean, they were supporting Hamas. They were sending money to prop up Hamas. So forgive me, but I didn't make Ghazala Hashmi go march with the Palestinian Hamas crowd. She did that on her own. She's out with her bullhorn, screaming and yelling about the radical Islamists who were slaughtering people with Hamas. So forgive me, I don't think it is inappropriate to ask that question of her today. An objective question. You tell me, lady. But what is not acceptable is for us to have an elected official who's the second in charge of the state who just figures she doesn't have to answer anything. She doesn't owe you an explanation. No, ma'am, you do. And when it comes to the murder of an innocent 41-year-old mother of 3 from Fredericksburg, who's stabbed to death by an illegal migrant who had been arrested 30 different times, and the Democrats keep letting him out of jail, you wanted to be the lieutenant governor. You got to answer that question. Why would you continue to defend this very bad policy that now, in this one instance, and there are other instances we can point to, but in this one instance, an innocent woman is dead because of your policy? And you still don't want to work with immigration officials federally because you hate Donald Trump so much? Or, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell us what you think about it. But Ghazala Hashmi rolled her eyes and didn't give a damn about the dead lady, didn't give a damn about the law, and her security guy, and, I hate to pick on, I don't know if he's a cop or state trooper or executive protection unit, but I've been around a lot of this stuff my entire life. That was out of line to shove a reporter who identifies who they are, who is it wasn't like he was up in her face. He held the microphone out, and the microphone wasn't up in her face. He didn't rush her. He was walking at a normal pace. And my question would seriously be, both to the security guy and to Ghazala Hashmi, where are you supposed to ask your elected officials a question? You're in the hallway of the state capitol. This is the problem with Democrat leaders. They don't think they have to answer to you for anything. You are nothing to them. You are a peon. The only time they care about you is when they can harvest your vote. They don't give a damn what you think. And that was clearly on display from the little Ayatollah, Ghazala.
Sure.
And that should anger everybody. Even Democrats should look at that and say, Ghazala, that was not right. And you did damage to all of us by behaving that way. I don't know why I'm waiting for the Capitol Correspondents Group to stand up on behalf of their reporter and say, now, wait a minute. In Virginia, we get to talk to our elected officials, and we're reporters. We're credentialed. You had to go through a security check. But, even if that was just an average citizen, it is not inappropriate for someone to say, excuse me, Lieutenant Governor, this is Virginia. I don't know how they do it elsewhere, even though I've been in state capitals all over the country. That was obnoxious and arrogant, and that's the kind of woman this person is, and you should know it, and you put her in charge, and I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and do I'm not going to say anything because that doesn't look good. To hell with that. I'm going to point it out.
Well, we're talking about people who believe that government is the solution to any at least perceived problem. As such, they can accurately be described as government worshipers. And given that that's the case, if they believe that government is something to be worshipped, then they believe that people who are officials in government are rulers. And when they get elected to positions of authority in government, they act like rulers, not people who are representatives or are accountable to the voters or constituents, but people who are elite. and everybody else is beneath them. How
Yeah.
dare you question me? How dare you?
Yeah.
Step off, reporter. Who do you think you are? And that was the attitude clearly on display from Ayatollah Ghazali yesterday in the state capitol, the little Ayatollah, when she's walking and just couldn't be bothered. I mean, can't even say that she has sympathy.
The crazy thing is, Dan, we're talking about a dead lady.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't just a policy position.
Yeah.
This is a dead Virginia
No
woman
sympathy.
and mother, and not 1 second. I mean, she has bad political instincts, which I would have exposed had she not been allowed to campaign from the basement. I mean, how can you as an elected official not have the instinct? I'm not even talking about as a good person, but just politically, to turn and say, gosh, this is a horrible story. There's a lot to this, but the one thing I want people to know and her family to know is that all of us at the Capitol are thinking about her family, and we don't want these types of things to happen. It's just a tragedy that it happened, and I'm going to have more to say about it later. I mean,
just say
I'm making that up as I'm sitting here.
Yeah, just say that. If
But she doesn't even have the class or the instinct
to
do that.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because no one ever holds these people accountable. If this was Glenn Youngkin, or Winsome Sears, or me, they'd be tearing us apart today for daring to walk by the reporter and not respond with sympathy to a dead lady and her family.
This is how Ralph Northam almost ends up moonwalking in front of a national press conference.
That's right.
6 years.
It's a joke. Total joke.
Yeah,
well,
not for
sorry.
Pam Northam. Pam Northam ruined what could have been the greatest press conference in the history of America. Ralph,
telling her
Ralph,
what to do.
no.
I'm not going to sit by and just allow this to continue, since apparently no one else in the state has the guts to call out something that is so obviously egregious and disrespectful to the people, to the reporters, to the dead lady's family. Sorry, not going to allow that to happen. And if you don't like me because of it, then so be it. I'm going to call it out, since no one else will do it. All right, let me just share with you again. Today starts the voting for this gerrymandering scheme that is illegal, but no one, the courts are impotent or blind or intimidated or compromised. I'm not exactly sure why the courts are allowing something that is clearly illegal to move forward. And I'm not saying it is illegal to change the Constitution. It is. You just got to obey the rules, and you got to do it the right way with the calendar. And Democrats have decided, typically, this is how arrogant they are. No, we don't have to obey the rule. That's what they've decided. And the courts that I would expect, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have to have a different mindset when you're a judge. You step up and you look at the law, the very clear writing of the law, and you enforce the law. But they're not going to do that. So we can argue about that all day and all night. It doesn't matter. The vote is going to happen. I'm assuming the vote won't be rigged. I pray. But the only chance you got to protect your right and your vote and your voice in Congress, and quite frankly, the right and vote and voice of your neighbor, if you believe in democracy, representative democracy, then this is a vote no situation. You can't allow the Constitution to be trampled on and stripped like it's about to be. You have to vote no. And don't, again, the Democrats keep showing their hand of how corrupt they are. They've written a description which will be mailed to your house if you get the mail-in ballot. And you're going to read it and go, wait a minute, this talks about how voting yes is so fair. I mean, I got to tell you something. When people lie to me, I really am pissed. I'm really mad about it. I would rather you tell me what you think and then allow me to say yes or no than for you to deliberately try to deceive me. And that's what's happening. A deliberate effort to deceive, not to win you over, not to explain it and get you to say, okay, I'll go along with you, but to deceive you. You know the difference. That's a different attitude. And I'll say again, I hope as a political commentator or as a person who might run for office, I hope I never get to that place where we're lying to people. Let's not do that. And you've got to make the statement of voting no to teach these people a lesson. because they're drunk with power right now, and it's going to be very, very harmful for the people of Virginia going forward. Please vote no today. And if you can't get to the polls today, cool. Wait till the mail arrives with the ballot and then vote no, or go down to the courthouse between now and April 21st. Dan and I will remind you as we get closer to
for the next month and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you got anything before we go?
I think that about covers it.
What are you doing this weekend?
Let's see here. I'll probably be watching a fair degree of college basketball. And I'll be on John Fredericks' sports show tomorrow as a panelist. We were both on his Virginia gang today. I hope that you thought that went well enough. And but yeah, I've become a weekly contributor to the sports themed show. I think he calls it like the Degenerate Gamblers show or something like that, which is kind of interesting because
Lord,
I've never gambled.
Does he really?
Never gambled a day in my life.
Yeah. So this is interesting, Dan. You don't drink.
I don't drink
and
alcohol.
You don't gamble either.
No.
Do you play the lottery? No, I play the lottery occasionally.
I don't think that I've ever bought a lottery ticket.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a lottery ticket when it's $1 billion and I'm making such a big deal out of it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done it. I've probably thought like, I should go do it, and I just probably never end up doing it. But yeah, it's yeah. So I do take a little bit of issue with the there was the thought on the Virginia gang that this addictive thing. I kind of have a mind over matter approach to life, and
but
with rights come responsibility.
Dan, but you can't you can't do that with things that I mean, I know what you're saying, and apparently you've demonstrated that discipline. Okay, but the problem is. And this is what I say about the marijuana stuff. This is what I say about the legal drugs, the whole libertarian mindset, which I would be inclined to go along with the libertarian mindset. But the problem is once you let a percentage of the population do something that will incapacitate them, bankrupt them, destroy their health, and then, even if you don't want to pay the bill, like you tell them, I'm not paying your hospital bill. I'm not paying your rehab bill. You're on your own. You deteriorate the society. That's the problem. And with the online gambling with the phone, one of the points they were making today was if you allow people to gamble and lose money every second, it's not even based on a boxing match or based on the basketball games you're going to watch this weekend or the Super Bowl. It's not based on the result of a game. It's just losing money left and right, which I think is the ultimate thing. I mean, I don't play the slots or any of that stuff. You're destined to see a percentage of the population that will bankrupt themselves. Like one of my good friends, great guy, 30 years ago. He had grown up poor. And had this mindset of I've got to make it rich, which is good. I mean, it could have motivated him to do some things business-wise, but it didn't. He lost it all, man, in Vegas. Lost his marriage, lost the house. God, it was just, I wanted to cry for him. And it was because he had that kind of addictive personality, and he just thought, this is the hand of poker. Or this is the blackjack hand that I'm going to win on red today. And he lost. It ruined his life. It destroyed his life and really did a lot of damage to other people around him. And I still stayed his friend. A lot of people did not. I still stayed his friend because I could tell it had ruined him. But I look at that, and it's not like I'm trying to micromanage other people's lives. But from a public policy standpoint, these jerks went after tobacco grown in Virginia. And I think they didn't do it because they thought tobacco was so bad. I think they just wanted to bankrupt and damage white Virginia tobacco people.
Yeah. I've never smoked a day in my life, but it looks like it's turning out that was not nearly the big bad health-wise that say sugar is.
It's not. Well, it's not healthy. I don't think it's healthy. Smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, I don't think it's healthy.
No, it's not.
But okay, if you're going to do that in the 90s, but now we're in 2026 and you're going to tell me, "Oh, let's legalize marijuana," that's hyped up. I've never smoked pot, so I don't know, but I am told that this marijuana, the modern marijuana, is so much more potent than what those hippie idiots were smoking in the 60s. Like it's night and day. It's crazy. Forget it. You have no credibility. You stomped the tobacco industry and treated people like dirt over Virginia tobacco, but now we want to have Virginia marijuana. Give me a break. I know what that's about. That's about, quite frankly, black Democrats who are trying to make a lot of money off of black citizens and keep them high and voting Democrat, which is disgusting. That's a disgusting attitude to oppress your own people and numb and diminish the ability of your own people. I want nothing to do with that. I think it's disgusting, and they should be ashamed of themselves for that.
I mean, I'd certainly make the argument that marijuana is legal under a proper reading and interpretation of the original Constitution. Again, I don't smoke marijuana. I have no interest in smoking marijuana. Don't really understand
under the Constitution.
Yes, yeah, both by means of the preamble and the Ninth Amendment. The enumeration of certain rights in this Constitution are not meant to deny or disparage other rights retained by the people.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to go along with that. I mean, if that's the case, then you have no
the Ninth Amendment
restrictions
should
on
be
it.
everybody's favorite amendment.
You have no restrictions on anything, and then you wind up with
nothing
with
that
society.
doesn't cross the line of civility, that doesn't constitute a breach of the peace and thereby a violation of individual
If I
rights.
walk out my door and there are 100 people who are incapable of feeding
that would be
themselves
a breach of the peace. That'd be a violation of your
and
rights
that's what
they're
you
on your
get.
property.
But that's what you
That's
get.
a property rights violation. You call the cops and they get taken out. I mean, private property is basically the solution to all of these problems. It's the panacea that if we have a true private property system, we don't have these quote unquote tragedies of the commons where it's like, oh well,
This is all
it's a public
hypothetical,
street.
Dan.
Yeah.
This is all hypothetical because you don't live in isolation. I mean, if you don't live in isolation, and we have unfortunately set up a structure.
Yeah, that's the
where
problem.
We've set up a structure where
away.
if you're a pothead and it graduates to coke or heroin or whatever else to make you high, then somehow I'm supposed to pay for your second or third trip to rehab.
That's the problem. And
I also don't want to live in a society where there are a bunch of drug addicts who are stealing from me and behaving badly and making life miserable for me. I mean, everybody doesn't have to be, Mr. Fitness, and we make everyone go to the gym at 6 a.m.
Right.
And if you get above a certain BMI, you're persona non grata, or you pay a fat tax because you're fat, and we can predict that you're going to be a drain on society. We don't need to get to that place, but I do think the substance abuse thing is very real. The abuse of gambling. I mean, do we just let the whole society go to hell? And I
would just
the
suggest
balancing act here.
that the market would solve these problems. That if people understand, growing up. Now this is a process. Progress is always a process, and an intellectual revolution always must precede a political revolution. We couldn't have had Thomas Jefferson without Thomas Aquinas. But if people grow up understanding that they are responsible for themselves, that responsibility is a byproduct of their rights, that if they don't make prudent decisions, they're going to be the ones who pay for those consequences of those actions.
That would certainly be a revolutionary idea for the average person.
That is the way forward, as I would say.
It still wouldn't solve the problem. I mean, if you've got 5% think about a classroom of 24 students in middle school.
I might call it a solving of the problem by way of a lot of Darwin Award winners.
Yeah, but then you still got to watch people die. And you got your... and that's my point. 24 students in a classroom. Yeah. Remember when you were back in class, let's just pick 24. My classes generally have between 20 and 24 students. It only took one or two to ruin everything for everybody. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't teach the lesson. You had kids crying and being picked on because of two little brats that one would discipline.
We're talking about government schools here, right?
Any school.
Okay.
And he's done private school. I went to private school too for
Did that
high
happen?
school. All
How
it
did
took
they
is
deal with
one.
it at St. Christopher's?
Well, I mean,
My
you had
guess is
more
a little different.
resources.
Yeah.
You had more. I mean, you had more latitude and more resources.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just it's a discipline in society, and I do think there's some things, like I don't think that we should say you can't have a drink.
No, I
So,
wouldn't. I wouldn't say that
but
either, unless you're
but
a
if you
child.
well, even that, I mean, if you were sick, I think we're kind of stupid the way we manage that. If you're 16 and you're at a dinner and you want to have a glass of wine, that doesn't freak me out. The problem is our society seems to revel in the grotesque abuse of these products, and we think it's funny, and we're willing to pay for rehab.
Yeah.
I mean, I
We've
just think
sent the
there's some
message loud and
parameters
clear
that
that
have to
people
be
are not
set.
responsible for their actions. My cousin Todd is an amazing doctor and surgeon out in Scottsdale, Arizona. The year that he took his med boards, he got the single highest score in the entire country. Graduated #1 in his
Really?
class from the largest med school in the nation,
Wow.
Ohio State, and called me up while I was in law school to moan and complain. I mean, he was basically preaching to the choir because he knew where I stood on this, but he had the same junkie keep on getting high and falling off of his balcony, split open his head or break some bones or whatever
He
else.
did?
He did. He wasn't the one doing it, but this guy
Oh.
was getting wheeled into the emergency room when he was on
Oh,
emergency
okay.
room duty, and each time this guy came in, he's obligated to fix this guy up, patch this guy up, and just ship him off to go do it
Go
again
do it
another
again.
month or two later. And it's not like the guy could ever pay and Todd, bless his heart, was saying, "Look, I don't mind doing it once or twice, but my goodness, if you're just going to keep on doing this, and I'm going to keep on having to pay for you to subsist like this, and keep on cracking your head open because you can't stop smoking crack or getting high, doing." I'm sorry, I don't. My view is if you can't get your act together, Darwin Award, congratulations, claim your prize. But we have sent them this message that everybody is sort of his brother's keeper, and I think if we start sending the message from youth, and it would be intellectually revolutionary, but if we start sending the message loud and clear from youth, you are. And Joe Manchin said this at the Richmond Forum when we were there a couple weeks ago. We've gotten in this business where government is our provider, and we need to stop that. We need to send the message loud and clear that you are responsible for you, and government's job is to defend the peace against breaches by anybody, from one
Well, there's
person.
a big gap between letting people die in the street from their own stupidity and the Iranian regime that bans alcohol, bans certain kinds of sex outside of whatever marriage
Sure.
they want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big spectrum between that, and I think we used to have the sweet spot on it, but there has been a movement in my lifetime where we're going to create programs that of course cost money, usually taken from the taxpayer, and we're going to fix everybody's problem on their behalf. And I'm not interested. I'm not interested in paying for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
I
right.
just think
well,
if we
I don't know how we
gird
went down that
people
road.
appropriately,
Right.
we will have many. I mean, exponentially fewer instances of people falling prey to their own bad decisions because they'll know that the safety net isn't there. That they have to take accountability
I
and
think that's
responsibility
true.
for their own actions.
I also think we've got to show that we're serious, like with crime.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got to.
You-
Yeah, it can't be. Yeah.
You
I
want to
mean,
know why you go to Asia and you don't see the same type of drug abuse in Asia? I mean, I'm not stupid. They're drugs, but everybody knows you get caught with drugs, you get your hand chopped off, or you're being hanged. That ups the ante. So a lot of people who would normally be in the drug trade domestically in Asia are like, yeah, that's not something I'm going to get involved in. And, we can't even discipline somebody who's a mass murderer in America. We're too wimpy and weak to say, no, that crosses the line. Slaughtering innocent people, especially in mass, it crosses the line. We're going to send a message to you and to everybody else that we're not tolerating. We're going to execute you. But no, Ralph Northam and these same dumb Democrats who created the environment in which a 41-year-old mother gets stabbed by an illegal immigrant and nobody really cares about it, they created that. They won't even execute someone who slaughters innocent people. And now they can't even cooperate with the federal government to remove them from the society. Give me a break. This is not a serious society if that's the attitude you're going to have. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to know that if somebody attacks me or kills me or Alonzo or somebody in my family, that the rest of society will just kind of say, oh, well, that's the way it is. No, it's not the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way. Let's get some tough people to stop this garbage.
Well, it starts at home. I mean, I'm not a parent. And I could see the parents saying, "What do you know, or what do you know about raising kids? You're not even a parent or else." But parents, you got to take discipline seriously. How many parents out there, if they discipline their kids, and say, "Yeah, that's it. You talk back to me, or you hit your sister. You got to go to bed early, or no dessert for you tonight." The kid comes, "I'm Mommy, Daddy, I'm so sorry.
It's the soft
I'm so sorry.
parent.
Can I please? I'm so sorry. I love you, Mommy." And they say, okay.
But
you gotta stand firm in those situations, because that's how you teach a kid. Look, Johnny or Danny, I love you, and I appreciate that you apologize, and I'm glad that you understand and see that what you did was wrong, but choices have consequences, and you did something that was wrong, and there's a consequence to that, and this is how I teach you that bad choices have bad consequences, and you need to learn that lesson now. What did we say? Pay now or pay more later.
Yeah.
This is the way that you learn this lesson early and easily rather than harder later.
Well, I bet you it'd be hard to find a parenting book that talks that way these days.
Yeah, my guess is that's true. Yeah, the generation of zero consequences, as Melissa says here.
We're living through it. Okay, well, let's go.
Yeah. All right.
Listen, I hope everybody has a great weekend. We will be back on Monday with everything fixed. If you can't see the videos, we'll try to make sure that works on Monday. And please give us a like on both of our Facebook pages, The Reid Revolution, and follow us on both, on X, on Rumble, and YouTube. And we'll plan on seeing you on Monday morning on The Reid Revolution.